Okay, hello. Today it is the 8th of February 2022, and we'll talk about three architects. Two architects died on the 8th of February, but years apart, and the third one was born on February 8th, and he's a contemporary architect from the United States. But let's begin with Carlo Rainaldi, who was born in 1611 and died in 1691 in February, on the 8th of February, as you can see. Carlo Rainaldi was an Italian architect of the Baroque period. Let's read a little bit about him. Born in Rome, Rainaldi was one of the leading architects of 17th century Rome, known for a certain grandeur in his designs. He worked at first with his father, Girolamo Rainaldi, a late Mannerist architect in Rome. After his father's death, he fully embraced the monumental Baroque style. He gained ascendancy in Rome when the Barberini pontificate of Pope Urban VIII was replaced by that of the more austere Pamphili papacy of Innocent the Tenth. His works include the facade of Sant'Andrea della Valle, 1661-1665, the twin churches of Santa Maria dei Miracoli and Santa Maria in Montesanto, and Santa Maria in Capitelli, 1663-1667. He was unable to complete the facade of Sant'Agnese in Agone during work in 1653-1657. Beyond his work as an architect in stone, Rainaldi also designed stage sets for religious rituals and events. In 1650, he designed the sets for the Quarant'ore, or 40 hours devotion, held in the church of Il Gesù. In 1665, he designed a catafalque commemorating the death of Philip IV of Spain. He was also a composer. Nice. Rainaldi died in Rome. So he died on February 8th. And well, we are not designing or building catafalques commemorating the death of important architects, but through these presentations, perhaps we contribute a little bit to the commemoration. Here he was, a rather funny mustache, but now I look at it, what's written underneath, and I don't see his name, and I wonder, is this him or not? Because when I search for his name on Google Images, this painting appeared many times, but now that I look at it underneath, it might be that's not him. So sorry. I will double check, but as I said, I saw this painting, this portrait, several times when I searched for his name. Some drawings of Carlo Rainaldi, Baroque architect and composer, apparently. I didn't search for music by him. I should have, but I didn't. Maybe you will. Carlo Rainaldi. Actually, to be honest with you, I kind of envy these Baroque architects, because they had fun. Let's confess, I mean, they drew, they invented forms, they used interesting, arrangements of forms and so on. There was a sensuous activity, compared to our boring minimalism and white walls and all the rest. I think I think it was much more interesting during the Baroque times. But there is a Baroque kind of a Baroque mentality at work today too. There are Baroque architects. In a way, Frank Gehry is a Baroque architect, and he himself declared he was influenced, inspired by Bernini. Okay, the facade of Sant'Andrea della Valle from 1661 to 1665. Here it is. Of course, the Roman Baroque is a very rich phenomenon. There were great Baroque artists and architects. You know, it's Rome for some reason was very fond of the Baroque sensitivities. This facade is I almost said glorious. I think it is. It is well balanced. Could we call it austere? Not really. I mean, the Baroque is not famous for its austerity. Far from it. It's a good facade, and you could say it's just a facade. Where is space here? Well, you know, our preoccupation with space is not the only preoccupation in architecture. You could be an architect of facades like here and be quite, you know, consider yourself lucky for you know, doing something like this. Now, these are the two preferred churches for myself in Rome. The twin churches of Santa Maria dei Miracoli and Santa Maria in Monte Santo. And here they are, twins indeed. Well, you know, like twins in nature, they are not, you know, identical replicas, but very close to being identical. So I like the duality. I like the rift, the schism, the doubleness. Didn't Dostoevsky write something with its name or its title, The Double? I think it's a fascinating subject, the double or two-ness or doubleness. So these two churches in Piazza del Popolo in Rome were designed by this architect who we commemorate today, Carlo Rainaldi. Although I generally, as a rule, I dislike repetition, for some reason, in this case and other similar cases, two-ness or, you know, twin crystallizations of forms and functions, I find stimulating, interesting. And this is a famous piazza in Rome, and these two churches, I think, are very good additions to the glorious architecture of Rome. So Carlo Rainaldi was not any architect. He was indeed a force, an important architect in Italy, in Rome, and in Europe, and in the world, actually. Carlo Rainaldi, Baroque Roman architect. Now look at these columns, you know, and look at the size of a human being. These are not, you know, some unimportant little supports for something. No, no, they are, you know, big. These are very fine churches. These two, I feel like looking again at them. I like them. Piazza del Popolo, Rome, Carlo Rainaldi. And now we go to a different work, Santa Maria in Campitelli. Here he designed the whole church. And again, this is stone. This is not, some sheetrock wall. No, it's stone. So everything we look at here, it's stone. And what can we say? It lasted for 350 years or so, a little more, almost 4 centuries, and it will continue to last. I mean, providing that Mr. Putin is renouncing his potentially tragic intentions. I still find it unbelievable, I mean, how do you explain it? Mr. Putin was almost alive when the Second World War happened. And he has no problem now to contemplate a new war. But he's not the only one. Was President Bush better when he started the deadly war in Iraq, 20 years ago? Was he better when 1 million people died? 1 million, I mean, nobody knows exactly. 1 million people died. COVID killed until now a little more than 5 million. But, COVID is a fatality which, was, well, let's hope, independent of human will. But wars are not independent of human will. How do you explain it? How do you explain that we have I don't know how to call it, I'm speechless. Wasn't there enough suffering in the world because of wars? Now, if Ukraine doesn't want to be part of Russia, what is the business of Russia? Why don't they allow them to be what they want to be? But Rainaldi created beauty. Well, there was, of course, always misery in the human world, and in Rome too, and in Italy too, and everywhere. Wars, wars, and wars again. Because, ambitious, full of vanity men, and blinded by an obnoxious desire for amplifying their power, provoke death. Death. It's incredible to me. I don't understand why the Russians don't take him down. So this is the church designed by Carlo Rainaldi. And yes, another house for God. A good building. Now, again, when I look at these works, and I hear people saying architecture is not an art, then what is here? What are we looking at? It's art. Of course it is art. Why? But I understand the confusion, because when you only use the T-square and the rectangle, and you only draw, rectangles, indeed, you begin to question yourself. Is it art what I'm doing? But to do something like this, you cannot do in the absence of some kind of artistic aspiration. It's impossible. Architects draw. They are interested in beauty. Beauty, yes, beauty. What is so difficult to understand? And, people, I asked students here, what do you think? It is an art or not, architecture? And some good students actually told me, and I appreciate their honesty. They said, we don't actually know. They were not sure. They were not sure because they were the prisoners of a dry, deadly functionalism. And You know, if you draw this kind of facade, I don't think you have doubts. Yes, it is an art. Okay, it's an art which is usable. I agree, but it's still an art. At its best, architecture is an art. And I think the cynicism and the indifference, the apathy are caused by this, because the artistic side of architecture was eroded terribly because of this obsolete, tiring functionalism that is so promoted, especially here and now. Anyway, yes, here we have space, of course. There is space, but it's not just space. Look at the treatment of the walls, the details and so on. This is art. It is art, and it employed artists, because Carlo Rainaldi didn't do everything himself. No, he had artists here, sculptors, painters, who worked with him. They all worked together for the house of God. It's a fine building. He was a good architect. Carlo Rainaldi was a good architect. He didn't build so much, but what he built, I think he built well. Now, if that portrait with the funny mustache belonged to him, I think it doesn't. But again, I don't know why that painting, that portrait shows up several times when you type in the names on Google Images. Anyway. Now you look at these columns here, and these columns, I mean, they could have been absent. The structure could have been done. They could have been incorporated within the thickness of the walls. But he has here, it's music, That's why these columns are like this here. He didn't really need them like this. He could have used the walls structurally, but the columns have their roles. The same here in the elevation. Does he need these dancing columns here? Not really. No, these powerful fragments of walls are enough for structure, but the columns sing. And since he was a composer as well, now if you ask a composer, is music art? They will say, yes, it is art. They don't have the confusion we have. We have the confusion because of its majesty, the deadly tyrant called functionalism, which reduces the architectonic music to trash. I'm a great adversary, although I admire some functionalist architects, but I think we went too far in evaluating architecture in terms of function and function again. What about beauty? Beauty has no function? Of course it does. Now, the last work I present by Carlo Rainaldi is this, the apsidal part of Santa Maria Maggiore, one of Rainaldi's last works. When I lived for a while in Rome, and I lived not too far away from Santa Maria Maggiore. It's not too far away from the train station in Rome, Stazione Termini. It's a big church, and I didn't know at that time that the back of the church, the apsid was done by Rainaldi. I didn't even know of Rainaldi at that time. Here it is. It's not one of his best works. This obelisk does not belong to him, but the apsid does, and is a little bit, I think, not austere, but not very graceful, I would say. Anyway, Santa Maria Maggiore, Rome again, Carlo Rainaldi.